In today's video, we have all kinds of NHL news and rumors to take a look at. In today's rumor mill, we're taking a look at a potential huge trade coming between the Penguins and the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll talk about how it makes sense, how the Canes have the assets and cap space to be able to add and make a significant move. We also have some trade talk around the New York Rangers. We also have some talk as well around another insider putting on his top 10 list of players that he expects to be traded here sometime early or midway point of the season. Plus, we have some updates around the NHL today as well. All kinds of injury updates. We have an update on Brandon Montour returning to the Seattle Kraken, updates on the Leafs, Predators, Kings, and a whole bunch of other ones coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots of information to go over here today and some trade talk as well. We got one update today that came, which was Brandon Montour returned to the Seattle Kraken. Of course, we knew he took a personal leave and was gone for about a week. Of course, we didn't know exactly the reasons why. They were, I believe, on a road trip at the time when things happened. He did return to the team and has spoken to the media to reveal what was going on. Certainly feel for him. Apparently his older brother passed away from complications due to ALS. So ALS, as we know, is a horrible disease. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. This is one of the worst things that people can encounter from a medical standpoint. He was dealing with ALS for 3 to 4 years, which is actually pretty good. I've seen a lot of battles end sooner than that. So that's, he was a fairly young man, had young children. Somebody that Brandon looked up to a lot, and it was very emotional. He was in tears talking about it to the media, but decided to be vulnerable and speak from the heart on what was going on from a personal standpoint. It sounded like some of them kind of already knew this, didn't want to report on it until he was willing to speak about it. But yeah, so Brandon Montour's older brother sadly passed away. So we certainly want to pass along our condolences. I know he probably won't see this, but certainly terrible, terrible news. And we certainly hope the family is healing as best they can under difficult circumstances. A bunch of other news today, including a significant injury update that we didn't really see coming regarding Habs winger Patrik Laine. Now, we knew he was dealing with an injury. We knew that he had gone to see another doctor here in the last few days to get a second opinion. What we didn't know was the full extent and just how serious it was. Patrik Laine is dealing with a core muscle injury, required surgery, and is going to be out for up to 4 months. That will take him pretty much to the end of February. So I would have to think that, now it's not a given it's going to be 4 months. It's up to 4 months. It could be closer to 3. But not only is that going to have a huge impact on his NHL season, but I would think that it's putting him at risk to not be available to Team Finland for the Olympics as well. I don't know for sure if he would have been on the team. I would think he had a good chance. But yeah, that's not good. I mean, he started off in Montreal last year, got hurt in the preseason, missed an extended time, came back, scored a bunch of power play goals, and then kind of, I don't know how to describe Laine. I'm not completely sold as well that he's a long-term fit there, and I've been saying that for a while. But all that is said, it's also the other bad part about this for him is he's in a contract year. So, he's a player that's needing a new contract. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's had terrible luck with injuries the last few years, missed a lot of time, had some good production, and he's had some unproductive stretches. So it could have a major impact here on his standing with the Habs, whether or not he gets re-signed, what his next contract looks like. It's just a really bad situation. I certainly feel for him. Like the guy just can't catch a break and can't stay healthy. So like I said, we'll see. Missing significant time again for the second consecutive year. You have to wonder if Montreal is going to start thinking like, geez, can we rely on this guy to be healthy and available in the lineup all the time moving forward if we do extend him? Or at the very least, I would think that his next contract is going to have to be a lot cheaper because he's missed so much time and hasn't put up the big numbers like the kind of contract that he's making now really kind of justifies. So it's unfortunate, really. Like, he came into the NHL being drafted number 2 overall behind Austin Matthews, and for a while there, his first few years in Winnipeg, like, what a stud he was, putting out 40 goals and getting around the ice. And, it just looked like could be a real unstoppable guy. I thought maybe he'd give Ovi a run long term, but then things kind of faded quickly. For Laine, after he left Winnipeg, things just never really worked out in Columbus. They did have a good stretch last year in Montreal, but like I said, the last couple of years, on top of, his time in Columbus and 2 years in Montreal. It's just a lot of unhealthy time and a lot of injuries. So it's certainly piling up for sure and taking its toll on him. Now, another player that's going to be out for an extended time here as well is Utah Mammoth forward Alex Kerfoot. Kerfoot had a similar surgery to Laine, a core muscle surgery. And now they are calling him 8 to 10 weeks. So they suspect he'll be closer to the 3-month mark, or maybe even less. So about 2.5 months for Kerfoot. So I mean, obviously that's, like not all surgeries are the same. The exact spot and the severity and all that could be different. But Laine 3 to 4 months, Kerfoot about 2.5 months. So those are some pretty significant injuries. With the Maple Leafs today, they gave Anthony Stolarz the full day off. Apparently after the last game, he was talking to the media with bags of ice on both of his knees. He's tired. Needs a break. Hasn't really had much of that so far. He's only had the 1 game off for Toronto so far this year. But considering that they haven't played that many games, I'd be mildly concerned. But obviously Joseph Woll has returned to the team. Won't play for a little bit because he has to practice and kind of get ready here. But, that's concerning for Stolarz, but good that they are able to give him a break. So Primo was playing. They called up Dennis Hill to be the backup today and gave Stolarz the full day of rest. Riley was questionable, but did get into the lineup today. Of course, the Leaf game is early tonight, so it doesn't conflict with the Blue Jays Game 2 World Series. The Leafs are home to the Sabres today. Game's, I believe, in the second intermission as I record this. Last time I checked, it was 2-2. The scorer, William Nylander, did miss the game today as well. He's out. First time he's missed a game, a regular season game at least, in an extended time. I think it was been about 3 to 4 seasons. He's usually pretty reliable. Didn't quite say. I'm suspecting maybe it's an illness or something, but he was a game time decision, but didn't end up getting in there. For Washington, Pierre-Luc Dubois is expected to make the return tonight. They did send Ethan Frank back to the American Hockey League, so that looks promising. The LA Kings today activated captain Anze Kopitar, so he's back. That'll give them a big boost. Now, the Predators captain Roman Josi is going to be out for a while. His status is considered week to week. Now, they made it clear this is not related to his diagnosis of what they call POTS during the offseason. So that condition he's been dealing with is not what's going on here. It's a separate injury. So, week to week generally means 2 to 3 weeks, usually, sometimes maybe more. So that's not good news for a Predators team that's trying to see if they can improve over last year. The Flames have returned Dryden Hunt to the American Hockey League as well. And Jared McCann with Seattle. He's on IR now too. He's going to miss some time. Jacob Markstrom is expected to be back with the Devils here soon. The road trip they have coming up is he is expected to play on that road trip, so that's promising. Hampus Lindholm was out of the Bruins lineup today. Johnny Beecher was back in. They did pick up a much-needed win over the Colorado Avalanche. Now, as I mentioned, a bunch of trade talk around the NHL here today. Chris Johnson of The Athletic and TSN has put out his top 10 board to start the season. Players he thinks could be traded this season, but more notably, I think for some of them, not only ahead of the deadline, but I would think a lot of these guys have the potential to go a little bit earlier than that. Now, some of these names are names we've talked about recently, some of which we're going to talk about here today. Number 1 on his list is Flames defenseman Rasmus Andersson. Of course, we talked at length about the Calgary Flames yesterday, wondering if not only Andersson, but guys like Kadri or Uyghur could get moved as well. In the case of Andersson, basically saying that he's 29 years old. As much as he does have, he's not completely closed the door and staying in Calgary, but he agreed basically with what the sentiment I've been saying here for a while, that I don't think it makes sense for Andersson to get signed to a long-term deal, because for him to stay, reports indicate that he is looking for an 8-year deal. I just don't see how that makes sense for the Flames, trying to get younger and faster, more skilled, and return over this roster. Signing somebody that's almost 30 for 8 years doesn't make sense. So I do suspect he's going to get moved. A couple of Penguins up next, who's definitely players we're going to talk about here today, Brian Rust and Rickard Rakell. He also lists Alex Tuch from the Sabres at number 4. Now, of course, we've talked about Tuch here recently as well. I think there's a desire from both sides there for him to extend and stay. But again, so far negotiations haven't produced anything, and until there's a deal, his name is going to be bantered about. But Tuch is a player that I think not only would he prefer to stay, probably because it's close to home and everything like that, but it's Also a scenario where if the Sabres, they had a rocky start to the season and they pick things back up, then it's been so. I think that, they kind of want to wait and see here. And again, is he going to want to stick around for more losing seasons if things don't turn around? It's not just about money there. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, the New York Islanders, a name that's been kind of in and out of our topic list here on the channel over the last several months. So another player that likely gets moved soon. Jaden Schwartz out of Seattle, a scoring winger with good amount of experience, veteran status, so he could be interesting and not making a ton of money. Jamie Alexiak on the back end as well. Also there, Muriel Ferraro in San Jose is another name to watch. Again, a player that's been in the rumor mill for several weeks and months. We'll see if something finally gets figured out there. Nick Robertson, of course, in Toronto, got back in the lineup for the Leafs today. But again, a player that's largely expected to be moved, but we've been hearing that a while. And of course, Brennan Hoffman, who we'll talk about here now, makes CJ's list too. Now, Elliot Friedman had some comments on Hoffman on his most recent 32 Thoughts blog that came out just in the last 48 hours here. He says that when he's asked about Hoffman around the NHL, that the New York Rangers, when they've had anybody ask about his availability or, and try to get them talking about trading him, that they're looking for good prospects, or at least a good AHL prospects in return. So probably looking for somebody of similar pedigree, maybe a former first rounder, maybe somebody who's 22, 23, not yet quite established in the NHL, a player of similar ilk that they can kind of view as a replacement, if you will, in their system. Because as much as things haven't quite worked out with Hoffman thus far, they have to be careful on giving up too early here too, because that's the last thing they want to see is another young player go somewhere else and kind of catch on and, be the player they thought when he was drafted. So Hoffman is definitely available for the right price. So far, nobody's really been willing to pay that. But if they want to pony up a good AHL prospect, that's likely what the Rangers are looking for here. Now, Utah Mammoth are another team. According to Jeff Merrick, who was talking to Dave Pagnotta on his program, the two insiders said that they fully expect the Mammoth and GM Bill Armstrong to make a significant move this year. He said they not only have the assets, they've got the space, like they have lots of availability. They've got the assets to do it. They've got players even on their roster who could be involved if need be. And then, of course, you have an owner who's ambitious and just their second season in their new location to really take things up a notch, put together the best winning product on the ice. Like, they've got the green light to spend. So, I mean, something they never had when they were in Arizona. So, certainly, they didn't link the team to any specific players, but they're a good team. They've had a good start. They're a team that really wants to get into the playoffs this year, give the crowd something to be excited about in their new home. Of course, generating playoff revenue is always huge for the team as well. So it goes both ways for the market and the ownership group to be successful and have a lot of wins, right? Winning and getting the playoffs does a lot of good for your community, for your team, your value, your ticket sales, all that stuff. So watch the Mammoth for another significant move. They've been pretty aggressive here since they became the new franchise in Utah just over a year ago. And as I mentioned, could we see a significant deal between the Hurricanes and the Penguins? Sure seems like it's a good possibility. I've seen some reports today suggesting that the Carolina Hurricanes are definitely going to be a team to watch. Now, I've heard multiple insiders mention the Canes, saying that they're going to be a team to kind of keep an eye on here. They have a good amount of cap space. It's only going to continue to grow throughout the season as they accrue space towards the deadline. On top of that, they have a good amount of assets. They have some prospects that are interesting. They have draft currency. They got some younger players that they might be willing to part with. This team really wants to get a Stanley Cup. They're very much in win-now mode. And if they can end up pulling off a blockbuster deal, they will do so. As we've seen from fairly young GM Eric Tulsky, he's not the type just to dip his toe in the waters here. He's diving right in and going for the big moves. We saw that in his first season last year, making the splash to get Mikko Rantanen. Unfortunately, things backfired and he wasn't able to get him signed. Had to trade him again, but when he did that, it didn't work out. But he was trying to bring in former Maple Leaf Mitch Marner. So, he landed Rantanen, couldn't sign him, tried to get Marner. He is not afraid to take big swings here at all. And if you look at, like I said, the combination of the ability to spend, the cap space, the assets, A couple of Penguin forwards that make a lot of sense is Rickard Rakell and Brian Rust. We've seen them do business with Kyle Dubas and the Penguins in the not too distant past. When they brought in Jake Gensel, we thought Gensel was going to end up being a long-term Hurricane. That didn't work out. Last minute in free agency, he signs, of course, with the Lightning. But we all thought that Carolina was going to be able to keep him. There was definitely interest. It wasn't that at all. It was just a case of the Lightning swooping in last minute with just a little bit better offer. And I think he liked his chances to get to a cup better. So far, that hasn't quite worked out, but still lots of time on that contract. But, looking for players looking to jump around and, to play with the Lightning, it's quite appealing. Same thing with the Panthers. They get nice weather. You've got the weather factor, the lifestyle factor. Then you've got on top of that the pedigree that those organizations have had. Not to take anything away from Carolina, but they haven't quite been there, done that just yet, where some of these other teams have, and it's quite appealing for other players to join them. Carolina is getting there as well. But, some of the smaller markets like the Hurricanes or the Jets, sometimes they do have a little bit of a struggle to get free agents, but they have a really, really good team in Carolina this year, and I think that we're going to see Tulsky really push for another significant move, and it might just come with his division rival in Penguins GM Kyle Dubas. Again, Rickard Rakell and Brian Rust would be phenomenal pickups for them. They're not getting a lot out of Andrei Svechnikov right now. I'm not sure that they would trade him. That's not quite what I'm saying, but they need Svechnikov. Now, he had a pretty significant knee injury. Like, he's been hurt a lot in his career. I'm starting to wonder if things just took a toll on him or what it is, but he is not a player that's really been able to give them what they really need. He's got a lot of term and money on his contract, so trading it might not be the greatest or easiest thing to do, but I don't know that they can rely on him to be a 30 to 40 goal scorer in the top six like he was. Seth Jarvis has really taken off this year. He's proven to be great. You got Sebastian Aho up there. They traded Marty Necas, right? So, to bring in guys like Rust and Rakell who could fit in like a glove in their top six, I think would be good. Rust has a ton of experience. Rickard Rakell, pretty good two-way player. In all honesty, a lot of people seem to think that those two players both make a lot of sense for the Hurricanes. And the Penguins could get some decent assets out of them to help towards their rebuild. I don't want to hear people say the Penguins are having a good start. Why would they make this move? Kyle Dubas is not a stupid man. He may not be the best GM ever, for sure. He's made some bad moves when he was with the Leafs, but most GMs have during their time in the NHL. But say this, he knows what his team isn't, and they're not a contender. They're nowhere near it. They're not a playoff contender. Yes, they've had a good start to the season. They brought in a good young goaltender. They've got guys like Crosby and Malkin still playing pretty well. But long term, are they going to be a playoff team? I don't see it myself, and I honestly don't even think he really cares that much. I think the long term here with Dubas is what's best long term for this team. And it's turning the roster over and getting themselves in a position to get more assets, because they've started the process to add more that way, but they've got a ways to go. They also have a phenomenal opportunity to get a guy like Gavin McKenna at the top of the draft this year if they were to be so lucky to win the draft lottery. So, and I've said before, I have a gut feeling that they're very much going to be in that mix and just might win this year. Just have the feeling. So we'll see what happens, but could we see a significant trade between the Penguins and the Hurricanes? It wouldn't surprise me. In the least, they could land themselves two big-time players to really help with trying to win right now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.